Hey everybody, welcome to the Fired Up with CJ show. We've been talking to Dr. Erica Elliott about her book, Medicine and Miracles in the High Desert, My Life Among the Navajo People. Can you hold up your beautiful book too so we can see it? Lovely. Okay. And we've been talking about some incredible healing miracles and shape-shifting healing miracles, um, gaining an understanding for the Diné, previously called Navajo people. And the last part I wanted to talk about is the your experience as a sheep herder and the deep connection that the Diné have for the earth and what we can learn. I mean, I feel like the earth is crying right now, between the fires and the hurricanes and I mean, just I don't even know the virus. I feel like Mother Earth is trying to talk to us. I feel like we don't speak the language, and I feel like the Dene possibly do. And I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit about what you personally learned with your experience about the Dene and their connection to Earth.
Sure. So I I was pursued by a Navajo man that was twice my age. He's Marshall Tom. He was the founder of the Navajo Times, the first newspaper ever on the reservation. And he kept pursuing me and
Romantically.
literally,
Yeah.
meaning he wanted me to be his girlfriend.
Right.
And so we ended up being close, and he had two kids, and he was married to a white woman who couldn't handle the reservation and left him with
Mm,
the two children.
mm,
So I think part of it, he was hoping to get a mother for his kids too. And but I wasn't looking for a husband. I wasn't looking to be a mother just then, but we became very good friends. And he took me to his parents' remote cabin in Hogan in the middle of nowhere near Shiprock. And it was, in those days, it was called Red Rock. And there was nothing there. It was just a very rutted road that went from the pavement 30 miles. And that 30 miles took well over an hour because the road
wow.
was so rutted. And and when I got there, I was so stunned by the scenery. It was so shockingly beautiful.
Mm,
And in its vast emptiness, it wasn't empty at all. I learned to stop seeing emptiness, and because my eye was trained and I could see all the different ridges and nooks and crannies, and I mean, it
mm.
was just so richly beautiful, and the colors were spectacular. And so I said to Marshall, I would like to I would like to live out here. And he thought that was really funny. And he said, what would you do out here? And I said, well, I would herd sheep. The silliest thing. But I actually meant it. I was serious. And they had 594 sheep and goats. They were considered extremely wealthy because you measured, the traditional Navajos in that era measured wealth by livestock. If you had cows, horses, and sheep, you were really wealthy. And he had a lot of them, and he was a big shot. His Marshall Tom's father was a big shot. He was a councilman, meaning that's like the president of your little area. Your and so they had like 12 children. Marshall was the oldest, and one of the next younger had mental deficiencies, and he had a history of TB. He spoke no English at all. He only went to the third grade, and he was the sheep herder.
Mm.
And he was starting to get old, and so I told I told him, well, I could take Morris's job. And so when Marshall told his parents, who didn't speak a word of English except water, they knew how to say water, and they said water, because water was so important, and it still is out there. and so when he told them, they burst out laughing. They thought that was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. A white girl wants to take over the job of a Navajo sheep herder. She wants to retire from teaching school, and she wants to come herd sheep. And they laughed and laughed and laughed. And then Marshall said, she's serious. She wants to perfect her Navajo language.
Wow.
And so I called her grandmother, it was Marcia's mother, but she was like 85. She still rode horses and chopped wood and rounded up the cows. I mean, she's unbelievable. So I didn't realize at that time, but I realize now in retrospect, they accepted me because she was already thinking she was going to make me into a good Navajo so I could be a wife to her son.
Oh, she thought she was grooming you.
She had an agenda that I didn't know about. But I figured it out because she insisted that I learn how to make fry bread and I shear the sheep.
Oh my goodness.
Butcher the sheep. I had been a vegetarian and I had to butcher a sheep.
Wow.
You would starve to death out there if you were a vegetarian. And so I had to eat what they ate. But can you imagine a vegetarian butchering a sheep?
Wow.
Oh my God. I prayed, please God, forgive me. Please do sheep and stuff. But anyway, it was an incredible education I got because she's trying to turn me into a Navajo. So she taught me about all the plants, how to dye them, how to cultivate them respectfully, how to use corn pollen to say thank you to the plant world. And when we butcher, I had to put a line here of a mark of corn pollen. That's what they pray with, corn pollen, to say thank you, brother sheep, for giving your life so our people can go on living. I mean, it was so connected.
Wow.
He's giving thanks for everything, all the plants they ate, the animals they ate. It was giving thanks, and so she taught me how to turn the plants into certain colors, the dyes. Oh, and she told me, I got such a lesson. She told me to pee in a cup and pour it in the water because it makes, in the water of making the dye, because it makes the, what's that term? Color fast, meaning it fixes the color. The urine fixes, it's a fixative.
Yeah. Wow.
And so, I mean, it was really earthy. My experience, it was really earthy. And the horse went, to be in charge of 594 sheep and goats, I had to have a horse. And so they told me to ride this horse called Jimmy. And it was a castrated male horse. And when I went up to introduce myself to the horse, he bit me.
Oh.
I think because I was white, I was different. I looked different, probably smelled different. So he bit me, and he had his ears straight back like he was pissed off. And I was really scared of him. And so, but long story short, we became best friends. I mean, I would talk to him for hours, and he totally let me practice rodeo tricks on him. He didn't budge. He would let me run from behind and try to vault up like in the rodeo. I never was successful, but I tried. And I rope his, I'd lasso his neck, and he just stood there and he let me do all this stuff. I mean, he went from biting me to being my close friend, and he had an incredible sense of humor. Like, what he'd like to do sometimes is just to make me laugh. He when I get ready to saddle him, he'd swell up his belly with air. I'd put on the saddle and cinch him up, and then I'd put my foot in to get up, and he'd let out the air and the saddle would fall down. And you could almost hear him laughing. He did that quite a bit. And then he had all these tricks. I mean, he was terribly funny. He liked to stop and eat, and we had to move to keep moving with the sheep. And so he'd do this trick. He'd get in a stance like he was going to pee. So of course I had to stop because he was going to pee. And then he'd eat. He wouldn't pee. he was trying to trick me, and so he could eat his grass. And we would on the cover, it's me talking to Jimmy, and
Uh,
Jim. See, I would tell him that I was looking for my path in life, and I wanted to find my purpose and something meaningful. And I knew that it had to involve service and it had to involve caring about the other person. But I told him I didn't really know what I was good at. And the horse just listened and listened. And sometimes he would go like this, and sometimes he would snort, but he never judged me. He never criticized me. And so I just spared my whole heart to him. He was the best therapist one could ever have.
he's like Mr. Ed. Okay, so were you able to translate the snorts and the head movements as like, yes, my dear, or like, no?
They didn't always match, but I knew he was listening. I think he's just letting me know he's listening.
I'm here for you. I'm here.
So
Okay.
I want to end this little story about Jimmy. Is when I came back 13 years later, to the only person left was the grandmother, and she was blind and everything, and
Oh.
it was hard for me to find the place, and so I thought, oh, that looks like it, but it's changed quite a bit in 13 years. So I parked my four-wheel drive, and I got out, and all of a sudden I heard this whinnying. And I thought, oh, that sort of sounds familiar. And then it whinnied again and whinnied again. So I went back behind the buildings, and there was a corral, and the horse charged towards me. It was Jimmy. And we
Oh.
hugged and hugged and hugged and hugged. And he put his head like this against.
Oh.
Oh my God, I started to cry. I just wanted to get on him and ride away into the sunset.
Oh, so sweet. So how has your connection to Earth changed as I mean there's everything is held so sacredly, and
Yeah.
there's a ritual for recognizing every single aspect of
Mm,
land. I mean, how
yeah.
has your life changed or how have you brought that deep connection to Earth to your current life?
You know, uh, all my patients know that I stress having a relationship with nature. It's very fundamental, and they all know that about me, and they all try to implement it and try to incorporate every day, whether lying on the earth or walking barefoot or some way they connect in a deep way with nature, or
Mm,
they go out in nature and do their qigong or tai chi in nature with their bare feet. And some go to the top of the mountain and do ceremonies. And so I bring sacredness into the medical practice. And
mm,
it's not religion, it's a sense of spirituality. There's something bigger than their illness, and they need to
mm,
plug into it, something bigger than their suffering. And they need to
interesting.
let nature hold them, let the earth
Mm,
hold them.
mm. And what has been the result of them and integrating? I mean, what have been the medical changes you've seen from people who've integrated?
They get so into it that they leave mainstream medicine behind. They don't go to mainstream doctors unless they broke their leg or they need some surgery or some. They have so switched over to a natural plant-based way of treating their conditions, and they they realize that they can't just put anything they want into their mouth. They have to be conscious. It has to be sacred. They eat with a sense of sacredness, and because they do that, then they're not likely to go get some disgusting food, because that's not what you do when you have a holy sacrament. You don't get some garbage. And so this helps them be conscious of buying healthy, pesticide free, organic, locally grown
Mm,
food. And so it changes their life, this
mm.
this kind of orientation.
And how are you viewing what Mother Nature is telling us in this crazy time with like fires and hurricanes? And I mean, how
It's
have you
all
thought about it?
predicted. The native people have predicted this,
Hmm.
that this could be, it could go either way. It could be like a huge revelation, breakthrough, spiritual awakening, and starting an alliance with Mother Nature.
Mm,
And instead of us raping her, and or it could go the other way. And
yeah,
so that's how a lot of Native people said, "This is our chance."
right. This is our chance. And I was wondering if we could close it with a blessing. And can you tell us what this blessing is? And maybe
Okay,
blessing all of us to change, to maybe get to
right.
that happy side.
So there's a word in Navajo that's very difficult to translate. It's called Hojon,
Hmm.
and literally it means beauty, but it doesn't mean cosmetic beauty.
Hmm.
It means much more than that. It means being in harmony with your world, being in peace, um,
Mm,
making peace with your family, your friends, your community, and the greater world. And their prayers in almost all the ceremonies, including "May you walk in beauty, beauty before you, beauty around you, beauty all around you." And I would just, before I say this prayer, I'd like to sing a Navajo medicine man song. So it's going to sound like it's not me singing, because it's going to come from a very deep place. And it means, I'm wishing you walking in beauty. Okay. Shinna shaya ya ya shinna shaya ya ya shinna shana jehosane ne ya ahla ahla konesha ahla ahla konesha shinna shaya ya ya shinna shaya ya ya shinna shana jehosane ne ya. And then this is the prayer written. And now you can hear the song, the sounds of the Navajo language. And just let this sink in, because this is a prayer for you. Chajango nashado. Shitsili chajango nashado. Shik ede chajango nashado. Shidege chajango nashado. Alzo shinago chajango nashado. Chajan nastle. Chajan nastle. Chajan nastle. Chajan nastle.
mm, beautiful. Thank you
Thank you.
so much. What a lovely way to end just a resplendent conversation. And I can't even just, I don't know how to describe it. Resplendent is my
Thank you.
word. I think that's a word. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. We've been talking to Dr. Erica Elliott about her book,
And it's
Medicine.
available on Amazon.
Yes, on Amazon, Medicine and Miracles in the High Desert, My Life Among the Navajo People.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show. Would love your support in any way by giving me comments below, or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.